tell you with a story. Yeah, nice story. It's not like the pants thing like last time. This is a totally different thing. This is a story. All right, so there's a boat captain. Let's call him Captain Smith. Sure, not related to Pocahontas at all. So Captain Smith is the captain of a merchant ship. You guys know what a merchant ship is, correct? All right, a merchant ship does not deal with like fighting. It's not a soldier ship. It's just a merchant ship able to bring goods back and forth from place to place. So Captain Smith is a good captain. He's considered one of the best captains in that area for merchant ships. So he takes his ship out, and they're going to bring some cargo across the Atlantic. So on their first day of their journey, which is a 5-day journey, he goes out, normal day, beautiful day, until his first mate comes up to him and says, "Captain, off our starboard, I see a pirate ship. What do we do?" So the captain goes, "Grab my red shirt and prepare for battle."
Oh, come on. I know where this is going. Just continue.
So I'll continue. So he grabs his red shirt and brings it back to the captain. And he goes, "Here's your red shirt." He goes, "Thanks, prepare for battle." He's like, "All right, I'll bring him a shirt, whatever." So he puts on the shirt, they fight the pirates, and they win, miraculously. This merchant ship going up against these ruthless pirates. So the first mate's a little like, "Okay, I guess I'll bring him his red shirt from now on." So the next day comes. He looks out again, and he sees 2 pirate ships. So he runs over to tell his captain, "Captain Smith, there's 2 pirate ships now. What do I do?" He goes, "Just like before. Grab my red shirt and prepare for battle." So he's like, "All right, worked the first time." So he goes, grabs his shirt, brings it back to the captain. He puts it on. They fight the 2 pirate ships, and they win. So now the first mate's a little like, "All right, this is kind of weird. This red shirt thing, it's got to be something. It's got to be magical or something." So the next day comes, and on the 3rd day, there was 3 pirate ships. He goes and runs to tell his captain. He says, "Captain, there's 3 now. Should I go grab your red shirt?" He says, "Absolutely, and prepare for battle." So he runs to the brig, grabs his shirt, but this time he asks the captain when he brings it back. He says, "Captain, I got to know, what's up with this red shirt? We seem to be winning when you wear it. Why am I bringing you this red shirt?" So Captain Smith looks at him right in the eye and he says, you can't tell anybody this. But the reason why I wear the red shirt is because if I was to get cut or wounded in this, I wouldn't want my men to see me fall. The blood would just mix with the shirt and you wouldn't see me get hurt at all. All they would see was their courageous captain plunging forward into the ranks of the pirates and defeating them. It's like a morale boost for them, if you will. First mate's like, "All right, that makes sense." He goes, "Just make sure you don't tell them." So they fight the 3 pirate ships, and they win. Miraculously, everybody's cheering. The crew's going crazy. But then the first mate looks out again, and he sees now 5 pirate ships. 5 pirate ships, not 4. He goes, "Captain, I believe that every single one of the pirate ships that we've come up against, all the rest of their crew members are now back, and they're coming to kill us. What do we do? We already have your red shirt. Should we prepare for battle? Is there anything else I can do?" Captain Smith looked him dead in the eye, and he said, "Bring me my brown pants." That was a really bad story, but all of it brought up, yeah, it's kind of gross. You're just like, that's how it ends? Like, they don't fight the pirate ships, he just craps himself, and they move on? Yeah. But the reason why I told you that story is because amidst all the troubles that the ship had, the captain did his best to hide his fear and to hide what he was going through. All right, I'm going to pray. Dear Lord, I pray for this night, God. I pray that it is blessed by you, Lord, that every word out of my mouth is yours and not my own. Let it not be for any vain accomplishment, but only for your glory tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we're going to be heading into Daniel. Daniel in the lion's den. Just let me get my notes up. So has anybody ever had a moment in their life where they've had to hide, not necessarily hide something, but in a moment where you have to stick something out? Has anybody ever had to stick something out? You ever heard your parents say that? Like, "Dad, I want to quit." And they're like, "Stick it out." Or, "Mom, I can't do these oboe lessons anymore. Stick it out." And then you grow up and they're like, "When you're older, you can be proud of yourself that you stuck it out." And then you grow up knowing how to play the oboe at some point and you're really proud of it. But you guys ever had moments like that? I have. Anybody? You Because like for me, I had a moment once where I had a project due. Does anybody like group projects? I like group projects. I do. They stink sometimes because people don't pull their weight, right?
Yes.
And you end up doing all the work if you're a good student. But I had one of those moments where I was given a task. I loved the project. I was ready for it. I wanted to do this project. But everybody I got put with was the kid who's just like, oh, whatever. If I pass school, whatever. I'll just work at BK. It's cool anyway. I get free food, like whatever. Like, those are the type of kids I got put with. And I was just like, come on. I'm like, God, why do I have to get put with this? This is important. I want to get this good grade. Why am I being put with these kids? I was like, whatever, because God just didn't want to answer me at that point. So I was just like, I'll just do it. So I was doing the work, working hard, and then the checkpoints came up, and I knew that my friends, my coworkers, my co-students didn't pull the weight. And so I didn't tell the teacher. I said, yep, we did the work. I worked hard on this. Here's my work. And I kept on doing what I was doing. At the end of the project, we ended up getting a pretty decent grade because of the work that I did. And I was confused, and I was like, God, why did I do all this work and they basically don't get their just rights? But what I didn't know is that the teacher pulled me aside the next day and said, I know that you were doing all the work this whole time, and I know you didn't rat them out. I know you didn't point them out and tell them, and that was really noble of you. I'm actually proud of you for doing that. Here's extra credit, or here's something else. I'll take this much off of a past grade that wasn't so good. And so without me doing anything, without God necessarily answering my question or having an issue like that and getting the answer for it, just because I stuck it out and I really pushed for it and I worked hard and I did the right thing, even though it didn't make me want to do the right thing at that moment, God blessed me. And the same thing happened with Daniel. So if we turn if you guys have Bibles, if not, it'll be on the screen. Yeah, I'll just read off the screen. It's cool. It's going to be a lot of reading, guys. I'm really sorry. So I might just call out on somebody. So you got to pay attention. I'm sorry. I might just be like, bang, read, and you're just confused. So just get ready. Daniel 6, 1 through 25 in the ESV version, English Standard Version. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 high officials, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps should give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Pause. All this is talking about is that in the kingdom of Babylon at that time, which I will put a picture up later, 120 satraps. Satraps were basically people to oversee. So they had so many provinces in the kingdom of Babylon because it was so big that they had 120 leaders. It's like having 120 governors or 120 like mini presidents, right? And so Daniel was chosen on the top of 3 overseers to see all of the 120. That's pretty impressive. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him. Now, it's talking about how these satraps did not like Daniel because he was basically better than them. And the king saw that. He saw that he was a hard worker, saw that there was no fault in him, and so they just didn't like him. It's like the goody two-shoes person, like, ugh, like, why are you so good? We don't want you here. Now, this whole huge thing, this is only thing that it's saying is that, King, make a law that nobody can do anything but do the things that you tell them. And then they said, we know that Daniel is faithful, and we know that he loves his God so much that he wouldn't disobey him. So we want you to make a law, which is the injunction, saying that he cannot do anything in accordance to his God. So that means no worshiping, no praying, but only to the king, and that he should be cast into the den of lions. All right, and then I'll finish the last part. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and injunction. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went up to his house where he had his windows in his upper chamber open towards Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had done previously. Then these men came by agreement and found that Daniel making petition and plea before his God. Then they came near and said before the king concerning the injunction, O king, did you not sign an injunction that anyone who makes petition to any god or man within 30 days except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, the thing that stands fast, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Then they answered and said before him, Daniel, who is the one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or the injunction you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed, and set his mind to deliver Daniel. And he labored till the sun went down to rescue him. Then these men came by agreement to the king and said to the king, Know, O king, that it is the law of the Medes and the Persians that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed. Then the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. The king declared to Daniel, May your God, whom you serve, continually deliver you. I'm going to stop there for now. I got you. I'm going to stop there for now. But can you bring up the picture of Babylon for me? It's pretty scenic. That was a really nice picture on Google. I wasn't expecting Google to step up their game. But can you go to like the map of like Eurasia? Yes. This was the Babylonian Empire at the time. So 120 satraps probably didn't look like a lot to cover all this land, right? So then you had this 120 satraps covering this area, each province of Babylon, and then you had 3 guys in charge of everything. And on top of the 3 guys, Daniel was in charge. That's ridiculous. This place right here, this is like an aerial view of like the main center of Babylon. It's just other pictures so you guys can see, but that's just one of the areas that the king would live in, this whole area right here, which is where Daniel most likely would have been in the palace. Daniel's in charge of this whole thing. Who was Daniel at this time? Yes. Daniel was taken, it talks about this in the first chapter, that Daniel was taken from the tribe of Judah, that he was a Israelite, he was of noble blood, which means that he was of noble blood, but that means that he was very well taken care of, he was educated, he was brought up in the right way. And the king took him as well as 3 other guys. Does anybody know the 3 other guys? Radshak, Backrat, Backpack, and Abednego. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which wasn't their real names, they were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Those were their original names. So the king took them as well as, I think, it's another group of men from Jerusalem. So he took all of the learned men when he had stepped in. Y'all know Nebuchadnezzar, that king, horrible king, right? When he stormed into Jerusalem, took over Jehoiakim, who was the original king of Jerusalem at that time, broke in, smashed the temple, took the goods, took the people, and then basically laid waste to it. So I remember last time, the message, I was talking about how Rome did this. Even before Rome was Babylon. So Babylon destroyed the temple the first time, and then Rome did later on. When he did this, he took the original nobility. So under Jehoiakim was the tribe of Judah, which was, you all know that David was part of the tribe of Judah, Jesus, the tribe of Judah, the line of Judah. That whole line is all royalty. So what Nebuchadnezzar wanted to do was he wanted to take the royalty, the learned people, the most important people, and corrupt them. He wanted to turn them into his people. So he brought him into the palace at the very beginning in the first chapter. The title is Daniel's Training in Babylon. He was taken. And so when he was taken, he was already found more favorable than the rest. And I'm just going to go over a little brief history. King wanted Daniel to eat some food, his own food. Daniel said, no, I'm going to eat vegetables for a week and be healthier than all you guys put together. he does that with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Does that with them. They're healthier. The king finds them more favorable, puts them already in a higher place. So now all the people who were already leaders in Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom were already upset. They're already like, all right, this guy's not even from here, and the king's already finding favor in him. Done. So Nebuchadnezzar talks about Daniel, talks about his God and how great his God is. After that, Daniel is told by Nebuchadnezzar to interpret his dream, and that's when he says to Daniel and all the rest of them, like, if you guys don't, do that, I'm going to kill you. So Daniel prays to God, and he says, God, please give me the answer to his dream. We need to get out of this. Please help me. Another situation. Boom. Daniel's saved from that, tells the king his dream. Done. Now, do you guys all know the fiery furnace? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego throws them in the furnace. That happens. So now poor Daniel, who is living by himself as royalty in Jerusalem, not doing anything wrong, serving God, gets taken, gets in trouble, is forced to eat the food, doesn't, proves something to the king, is then again tried about his dream, says he's going to get killed, trusts God, does that. And then now he's being forced to worship an idol of Nebuchadnezzar. He says no. They throw him in the furnace. We all know that Jesus saves them, takes them out, and then Nebuchadnezzar believes that God is the main God and all that stuff, and then he goes crazy out into the wilderness and then comes back. Then his son comes. So he dies, his son happens. Belshazzar is his name. Yeah, Belshazzar. Belshazzar comes up. He's a pig. He's greedy. He could care less about what his dad did, wants to do his own thing. Takes the cups and all of the expensive jewelry from the Ark of the Covenant, from the temple in Jerusalem, defiles it, is eating, is being gluttonous over everything. He's causing all this trouble. And then Daniel gives him a message and tells him that God is going to dethrone him. All that stuff happens. So Daniel's already in a place of high authority with Belshazzar. Belshazzar says, I don't care who you are. I don't care who your God is. And basically, that's when the hand comes up on the wall, writes on the wall, and basically says, like, you're greedy. God's going to kill you if you don't do anything. And then in that same morning, Darius the Mede comes in, which is the king we're talking about now. So Darius comes in that same night, kills Belshazzar. Daniel's still okay. And now, so Daniel's already gone through 2 kings and is now here. What did Daniel do to deserve any of this? He was sitting at home, probably reading the Torah, chilling out, and then Babylon comes in, takes everything. He's left without anything, then regains everything through the mercy of God. So now we come back to chapter 6. And so now Daniel is just doing what he's supposed to do. He's being a good servant. He's being a leader. He's going through all the right things. He's still trusting in God, still believing, yet all this stuff keeps happening to him. And now he's here. He's got people who are conspiring against him, who are saying all these things about him, put him into a trap and say, like, there's no other way we can stop this guy or to get him in trouble or to get him to be put into prison or something to happen to him. We don't like him unless we talk about his God. So they bring it onto his terms. And so now the world around him is circling him and saying, like, we don't like your God. We're going to do everything we can to stop you. 17. And a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, and nothing could be changed concerning Daniel. So Daniel's done. That's it. Once the king puts his signet on, that thing cannot be moved at all. Can we put up the first point, please? Sometimes going through struggles is what makes us stronger Christians. At this point, Daniel, before he was put into the lion's den, even though the decree was made, he said, I'm not going to put down my God in any way. I know this time is coming. I know all this is crumbling around me, but I'm not going to deny my God. And so even in his struggle, even though he's seen all these things, he knows that God is faithful, and he's going to press through. And things don't look up. They get worse. Sometimes in our lives, we have these struggles that really get at us. But that's a moment where we can really dig deep and trust in God. I mean, I've had plenty of moments in my life where I'm crying out to God, not knowing what's going on, and saying, Lord, please just take this away from me. Take this sickness away. Take this problem away. I don't know why I'm dealing with this. I'm doing everything right, but sometimes it's what we need to become stronger, to believe that Christ can save us, because he can. So now Daniel's inside the lion's den. That's it. He's done. The king didn't want him to go in there. He liked Daniel. He's just like, this is, guys, this is kind of dumb. I like Daniel. I think he's a good guy. I don't really want this stuff to happen to him. It talks about how he was really conflicted. But all the satraps and all the people were like, yeah, but you signed this document saying that no matter what happens, blah, 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 blah. Now we get to put Daniel away. So the king is left with a decision, and he has to follow through with it because he signed on it. So Daniel is done. He's finished. He's in the lion's den. And at this time, being put into a pit. Now, Joseph was put into a pit. Plenty of people were put into a pit. But a pit was not just like this hole. It wasn't just a hole, and there was at this case, there was some lines at the bottom, which made it worse. But it wasn't a pit as in let's dig a ditch and throw Daniel in it. It'll be cool, and we'll just throw a rock on it. No, a pit was deep, dark, and there was no way of getting out of it. Honestly, they made it so that I forgot what the website that I was looking on, but they just talking about ancient world pits. They would shape them like this so that you couldn't climb out of the pit. It was strategically made so that you couldn't get out. That's it. You're done. You're finished. You're going to die in that pit. Whether it's starvation, whether it's lack of water, whether it's lions. Sometimes they would put spikes at the bottom of the pit, so you have a surprise when you get to the bottom. It's bad. That's it. There would sometimes be water, dead bodies. This was not just like a hole. And when I first read this, I'm like, so what? He got thrown into a hole. Yeah, there's lions. If there wasn't any lions, it wouldn't be that bad. It's awful.
Was it kind of like that big tunnel in The Dark Knight Rises where he's climbing up? He's trying to
Okay,
get out?
that's a good example. It's a good way to think about it. But he could get out of that, right? Yeah, it took him a while. It took him a while. It took him the whole movie. His back broke. It was a mess. But it took him a while to get out of there. In this case, it was shaped so that you couldn't get out. So they're just you guys seen 300 when he kicks those guys in that bottomless pit? That's what it was, except it's a bottomless pit, but there was definitely a bottom. Unless the guy who dug the hole was still down there. That kind of suck. Okay, so picture this hole. Now it's filled with lions. So now Daniel's like, God, I'm trusting in you. You've already brought me out of this, and this. Why am I getting thrown into this? Why am I getting put into this pit? I just got to go pray to you. So he goes up and he prays to God in his moment of darkness, in his moment of despair. He prays to God, and just like he did before when he was thrown into the furnace, he talks to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he says, the only way we can get out of this is if we pray. I'm scared. He even says it. He says it came up to them in a frantic. Some versions say it came up to him in a dazed look, in a crazed look, and said, guys, I don't know what to do. All I know is that we can pray. It seemed to have worked before. Captain, your red shirt, it seems to have worked before. So Daniel was scared, but he still trusted in God. And sometimes our struggles are put on display so that God's faithfulness can be shown. That's point number 2. Can we go back to the verses that we left off on? Thank you very much. Did you guys not get that? Did you guys not get the... Sometimes our struggles are put on display so that God's faithfulness can be shown. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. Then at break of day, the king arose and went to haste to the den of the lions. As he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tongue of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions?" The Daniel said to the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him and also before you, O king. I have done no harm." Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded, and those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions. They, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwelt on all the earth, "Peace be multiplied to you." Some versions say that the king said, well, this is the ESV, my version, the NIV, and 2 other versions say that the king declared to all the nations that he ruled in all that area to serve the living God of Daniel, to trust in him, that now their whole God, their whole system is now changed because of Daniel. Imagine that. Imagine a guy who's gone through all this crap and just like, God, I need your help. God saves him, and now has affected the entirety of an empire. It's not just a little, kingdom. It's all of that part of Eastern Europe and Asia. Sometimes in our lives, we have struggles that will be hard, that will be tough, that will be so malicious against us, even though we're not doing anything wrong, or we might be doing everything right. But sometimes God allows us to get involved with these things, to test our faith, to strengthen us, and to ultimately have his glory shown. Now, I want you guys to think of a time in your life where you've had something hard happen to you, something terrible, something awful. It's the hardest thing that you guys can think of. If it helps, close your eyes. If it doesn't, just think about it. I mean, in that moment of despair, in that moment of problem, now compare it to what your horribleness was like, to what Daniel was like. So think of your worst thing at the time. That was Daniel's worst thing at the time. If we were to flip it on its end and to put Daniel in present time, just think of the worst thing you could have gone through. Whether it was your fault or somebody else's fault or a problem that happened, you went through it. And by the grace of God, you're all here today. I mean, you may be scarred, you may be bruised, there may be something that has happened to you that changed something along the way, but you're all here by the grace of God. I'm here by the grace of God. Being able to talk to you guys like this, just by the Lord's faithfulness. That he's able to take me out of a pit, take all of us out of a pit in our lives, a place that was so dark and destroyed, and pull us out. That's a beautiful thing. We talked about 2 weeks ago how the woman was at her lowest point and God brought her out. But she was already at her lowest point because of her own doing. Now Daniel is here and he's doing everything right. He should be at the pinnacle. He should be at the mountaintop of his life. But he's in a lion's den. He's in a pit. But it's so crazy that God used such a dark and demented situation like this and flipped it on its end, and it became a witnessing point. Sometimes, guys, in our lives, when we are going through these dark and horrible times, it's a moment that we can witness to other people. To say that I'm going through all of this, but I know that my God is faithful. I know that he is strong, and I know that he is mighty, and he has risen from the grave to new heights, and it has been the Savior of my life. Wouldn't it blow your mind right now to see that Daniel came out of a pit, came out of death? Who else do we know that did that? Jesus. Jesus came out of death in the grave. It was sealed. The tomb was sealed. The pit was sealed. There was no possible way that they could escape. But God's love, God's mercy, God's faithfulness brought them out of that, from death to life. Guys, when we are in our struggles, when we are in our situations, we are able to rise up with God's love, with God's faithfulness, with his strength. By his strength, we are able to rise up out of our darkest points and become a ministry, become a mission field, to be able to preach to the nations because of his grace, because of his faithfulness. What if we looked at our situations like that and said, wait a second, maybe somebody's watching? Think about that. What if somebody's watching you go through this? It's not just you. You may feel alone. It may look like you're alone, but there's somebody watching you somewhere. We're all leaders, whether you like it or not. You know, you could be a horrible leader, or you could be a great leader. It's just people are always watching you. So what if somebody is seeing you go through all these struggles and is saying, man, that's hard. That's tough. I can't picture myself going through that. That must be a lot for them. They may not say anything to you, but they're watching you. They're watching your every day. They're watching your situations. And as they see you come in and faithfully reading the word and pressing on and saying, my God is stronger than my problems. My God's bigger than that. I'm going to keep forcing myself to push through, to stay the course. What stay the course means it's a nautical term for continuing on no matter the cost. They usually use it during storms. Stay the course. Captain, what do we do? Stay the course. What if somebody's watching you? What if somebody is looking at your life and saying, man, I don't know what's up with them. Everything's going wrong. They're great people. They're a great person, you know? I really like them. Why is this all happening to them? I don't understand it. It just seems weird, but for some reason, they have this glow. Man, for some reason, they're happy. Oh man, it just seems like they're joyful. What could it be? They're in a pit. There's no way of getting out of this, but they're somehow pressing on. What on earth could possibly be holding them together? That's Jesus. That's holding them together. That's Jesus grabbing us up in his hands, holding us close to him and saying, I'm not going to let you go no matter how deep of a pit you're in. There's no pit deeper than God's love. I like to think of it as, picture a hole, a cylindrical hole. Someone falls into it, God's hand is already waiting at the bottom. That's how I think about it. God's never going to let you fall. No matter what the situation is. Even if things are going right and everything seems to be going wrong around you, even if you're doing everything biblically correct, you're praying, you're preaching, you're doing everything right, and everything's going wrong, God is never going to let you down. He's never going to let you down because he knows someone's watching. And just like the king was watching and waiting and saying, man, I like this guy. Why is this all happening to him? I hope his God saves him. I hope she gets cured. I hope that their family problems get better. I hope this happens. And when it does, or when it doesn't, and we're sitting there and we're praising the God who has just given us breath in our lungs for that day, man, that's got to get somebody upset. Here's somebody who's like, everything's great for them, then everything goes horribly wrong, yet they're still praising God for it. Something's got to be up with this God. Something's got to be up with Daniel's God. A God who's been faithful time after time after time, who gets you up in the morning, who gives you a plan and a purpose, who knows you, who loves you, who created you. There's something about this guy we should know. And point number 3, it's always for his glory. Just like people are watching us, people are seeing our struggles, people are seeing our problems and our issues, and it's always for his glory. I mean, there might be things that you guys are going through right now that I don't know about. There might be horrible things, terrible things that I would wish on nobody. I mean, I don't know them, but God knows them. But I want you to take a second and think, maybe somebody's watching. Maybe somebody's standing on the sidelines watching my life go on and wondering, how are they getting through this? Maybe I don't even feel like I should get through this. Maybe I feel like there's like I deserve this, or I've gone through this, or there's something wrong. Like I don't know. I just feel like I should be at this point. it's always for his glory. Sometimes God will let you fall into a pit of lions, fall into a pit of despair, a horrible place, just so he can pick you up and say, look, everybody, look what I did. Look what I did for them. Look how I changed their lives. Look how I shaped them. I think God's so funny because he goes, it's almost like a dad pushing his son or daughter on a bicycle. It's almost as if like he's letting you go and he's like, all right, and the kid's freaking out, he's shaking, doesn't know what's going on, knows that he might fall over or might get bruised, cut, scraped, I don't know, that there's a problem. But the whole time the kid is just focusing on what he's got to do. I'm going to ride that bike. I want to ride that bike. I want to figure it out. I want to get through these problems. I don't know how to right now, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing myself, and I'm going to get to that point. I'm going to ride this bike. And then before he knows it, he's about to fall over, and his dad's already there with the bike, holding him up, saying, you got this. Let's go. You got this. And then we'll let him go for a little while until he gets it. Then he says, later on, his son will say to all of his friends, my dad taught me how to ride a bike. My dad taught me how to do this. He was there for me the whole time, guys. I didn't even fall over. Or even if he did fall over, my dad was the first one there to pick me up. It's always for his glory. Sometimes we're struggling to get through something. Sometimes we're thinking of a moment in our lives where it hurts, it sucks. And we're like, how do we get through this? What good is this? Why am I going through this? Maybe it's because somebody's watching. Maybe it's because God wants to use you in that situation. Say, you had a horrible, horrible situation, but I saw you and I knew from the beginning that you would go through this and that it would be a testimony. Your testimony is a powerful thing. Daniel's testimony changed an entire empire. What's your testimony? Maybe your testimony is going to change somebody's entire life, their family, their friends, the area around you, your schools, wherever it is. Guys, know that no matter what struggle you go through, it's all for his glory.